isolationism. In 1947, the Geisels bought an observation tower atop Mount Soledad overlooking the sleepy beach town of La Jolla. Helen and Ted, two East Coast natives, set about building their California dream home. It became a whimsical retreat with a landscape that appeared to have sprung from the imagination of Dr. Seuss. A place where Ted Geisel would do his finest work. He'd put in long hours, 7 days a week, often retiring just before dawn.
He was a fantasist, you know. He'd make his drink, light his cigarette, go in his study at midnight and start thinking crazy, you know.
Helen cleared the way for her husband to create by managing the household, doing many tasks herself.
I really enjoyed Helen Geisel, who was a very skillful editor, a very loyal, devoted wife, but unfortunately she had an ulcer, so she drank milk while we drank martinis.
She was an incredible steadying influence and could figure out maybe where Ted was going to be when he calmed down. that when he got overly excited about something, she might see that he might not like it so much the next day. And if he was totally fed up with something, she could see that it was really pretty good and that it might be important for Ted not to throw it out just yet.
I write for myself, Ted once said. Children are just as smart as you are. The main difference is they don't know so many words. If your story is simple, you can tell it just as if you're telling it to adults. After his success using a 225-word vocabulary with The Cat in the Hat, Bennett Cerf bet Ted that he could not write a beginner book using only 50 words. Challenged once again, Ted retreated into his studio and worked for a solid year, writing, counting words, and rewriting over and over again. What he produced would become the best-selling Dr. Seuss book of all time.
Do you like green eggs and ham? I do not like them, Sam, I am. I do not like green eggs and ham. Would you like them here or there? I would not like them here or there. I would not like them anywhere.
He proved something in it that no one else could possibly do, that no matter what strictures you put on him, he'll still write something absolutely incredible. The book itself is incredibly simple, but Ted got every possibility out of those few words that you could possibly get. Plus, the book itself is, again, about something mischievous that kids absolutely love, and Ted was a big kid himself.
As editor-in-chief of Beginner Books, Ted issued a strict set of guidelines for the series' authors and illustrators.
You're working on a project, and it was almost there, and you sort of relax. We figure it's almost there, and Ted would bring you up short. He says, nope, everything stinks until it's finished. Wisdom from Ted.
And then it was Helen who smoothed the process, smoothed the way between not measuring up in Ted's mind and getting a publishable book out of it in the end.
And she brought, let's not get too crazy with the Bernsteins. Let's let them do what they do.
Let the Bernsteins do what they do best.
That's right. And she was quiet, but when she spoke, he would listen to Helen. He had great respect for her.
The success of Beginner Books attracted high-profile authors such as Roald Dahl and Truman Capote, who attempted to write for the series but could not adhere to its limitations.
You really do have to tear up 99% of your ideas simply because they don't fit within the vocabulary, they don't fit within the format of the book, they can't be illustrated, you know, all of these things. That's why the really great beginner books are unique.
I do so like green eggs and ham. Thank you, Sam, I am.
Ted had this kind of naughty side. I mean, it wasn't dirty, it wasn't really bawdy, it was just kind of a little bit naughty. When he was working on Dr. Seuss's ABC, a page arrived as if it were a real spread for the book, and it says, Big X, little x, XXX. Someday, kiddies, you will learn about sex. Note, if Bob Bernstein sees any sales problems inherent in this concept, I won't object to substituting my alternative suggestion. Signed, TSG.
Helen Geisel once said of her husband's sophomoric sense of humor, "His mind has never grown up."
I always described Helen to my friends as the perfect wealthy lady. She was very polite, but not obviously so. She was gracious. She was always nicely dressed. She was very articulate. She swam every day in the afternoon. Before her swim, she would have tea by herself in the living room, and she would have yogurt in an egg cup. An egg cup's worth of yogurt, plus her tea, and a biscuit of some type.
Still attentive to her husband's needs, Helen knew Ted preferred smaller gatherings at home to more formal events in town.
One of the funniest things about him is he so hated La Jolla society and the Grand Dames. So he had a series of drawings which were never published called The Bird Ladies of La Jolla, and they're very satirical.
Ted could be the soul of charm, and he was witty, and he was very bright. Conversation never lagged if you were part of it. The problem was becoming part of it.
Never comfortable in a crowd, Ted would simply disappear. At one dinner party, he was discovered in the host's library signing books using the name Robert Louis Stevenson.
I always thought of him as the kid that stands at the back of the classroom and says the wicked thing or eggs someone else into saying it and then steps back and looks totally proper, totally mannerly, and the other one gets the blame. He was always the rascal.
In 1966, Ted's old friend and wartime collaborator Chuck Jones approached him to adapt a Dr. Seuss book into an animated television special. But Ted hadn't forgotten the production by committee disaster of the 5,000 Fingers of Dr. T.
Because he was anti-Hollywood very much, so I told him this was another field. This is television, and he didn't know much about television either. But so I went down there and we talked about it and decided on How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Oh, please don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small.
I mean, you know, it's kind of stabbed at the heart of an agent whose normal job is to get as much money as possible for his client. Ted was not indifferent to money. He liked making money. But it was never the primary objective.
As the father of contemporary children's literature, Geisel was a frequent guest of honor at social events promoting his books and literacy.
He liked his work getting recognized and being recognized. He was very gratified by the influence it held. But that was his work. And he had a lot of distrust and wariness of any efforts to kind of make him an icon.
He said, I'm not interesting to talk to, but they expected, I guess, that maybe if a man who wrote all these wonderful stories and tales, that when he spoke, they would be the same way. And he was not that way.
He was, after all, a grown-up human being, and I have somewhere a wonderful photograph of Ted at an autographing event, and somebody turned up in a Grinch suit, which is so monumentally awful that all I can do when I look at the picture is delight in Ted's take to the camera, which is this kind of